Hello. You are either a flight instructor or a student of flight training, or you know one of them. So my question to you is, are you being baby gated? And how to stop doing it. This term was come up with today by someone I just met through Facebook, and she's an absolute delight. Her name is Dorota Smith. And she is my new favorite person when it comes to talking about teaching. Anyway, so a conversation was had previously about students who get to a certain portion of their flight training and they don't know something ridiculously obvious. For example, there was a story of a female flight student in the States who got up to solo, like almost soloing, and it came out all of a sudden, just as she was getting ready to do her very first solo, that she had no idea what a windsock was. And then so as this commentary divulged on the internet, I'm like, how did this even happen? So there was people on the commentary saying, oh, bad student, oh, bad instructor, oh, bad flight school, is this flight school's fault or that flight school's fault? None of that matters. The comment that I made was, how on earth did that student have zero curiosity and zero personal responsibility over her own learning to not want to know this or be curious about what that big orange thing that they keep saying the windsock is? What is that for? Every airport has one. I'm supposed to find it when I fly overhead. So where did that curiosity or personal responsibility go? Now, this lovely lady, Miss Smith, had, as I said, how on earth did this curiosity not happen and where did her personal responsibility go? And I said, it probably is a history of instructors, not necessarily flight instructors, but instructors or teachers spoon feeding her information and not requiring her to step up and take responsibility for her own training. That to me is very scary. So Ms. Smith said, yes, like spoon feeding, baby gating, it happens everywhere. And I just love the term. So if you are a student, if you are a flight instructor, or if you know one of these people, baby gating typically happens when you're trying to prevent the student from harming themselves. Oh, you got to put a gate up here and you got to put a gate up there. I got to stop you from hurting yourself because you don't know all of it yet. So there's three things that you need to do to stop yourself from doing that, because even though well-intentioned, baby gating actually prevents the student from taking responsibility over their own learning. And number one, okay, before I get into the steps, how do you force somebody to take personal responsibility? You can't. You can't force them to want to suddenly step up and be independent in their own training. But what you can do is enforce accountability. You can't force responsibility. You can enforce accountability. So here's my 3 quick steps on how to get yourself out of the habit of baby gating students. And if you're a student, to kind of shut down your instructor. My notifications are going off here. Shut down your instructor from doing this to you and allow you to take control. Be more responsible, because if we baby gate student pilots, if we spoon feed them, we are not allowing them to be healthy, independent, productive pilots when we release them into the world. Okay, step number 1. You must assign homework that actually does something. Okay, so instead of assigning homework of read this thing because I have to give you something, you have to assign homework that they have to complete before the next lesson that actually helps them in this lesson. Read a chapter that's relevant to the lesson. Yes, absolutely. Great homework. Look up a TSB report of people who didn't follow certain procedure that you're trying to teach. Yes, that's a great homework lesson. Step number 2 is very vital. And that's terrible grammar, but how I speak and type is always terrible grammar. So step number 2 is when you assign the homework that they must complete, even if it's watching a YouTube video, right? That they must complete before the lesson, you have to enforce that they cannot fly until they show that their homework is complete. If the homework is reading a chapter and they show up and you say, did you read the chapter? Yeah. Okay, so here's a list of questions that prove that you've read the chapter. Okay, that prove that you've read over the exercise, that prove that you've covered this in the flight test guide that we are getting ready for. And if the student then it comes out that they didn't do the homework, they didn't do the reading, they didn't do the case study, they didn't do whatever it is that actually is going to help them in this lesson and help your job as the flight instructor get easier. This is hard. Step number 2 is don't go flying. Oh no, right? So if you even once cancel a flight because the student didn't do their homework, you are setting a hard and fast boundary that I care about your training enough that I am not going to waste your time by spoon feeding this into you, right? You have to be proactive and you have to be responsible enough to do the homework. So let's say the homework is create a weight and balance, to create a nav plan, to create whatever it is, and they show up without it created. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to go anyways, you're going to say, nope, assigning homework is good for your training, and I care about your training, and I care about you as a pilot. I care that I'm not going to waste your time, and this means enforcing you doing your own work, enforcing the accountability of it. Your homework has to be completed before we go flying. Now, you didn't do the homework. We are not going to go flying. I will sit here and do the reading with you right now. I will sit here and do the weight and balance with you right now. That will happen once. Kind, respectful. I care about your training. I care about not wasting your time. I care about making sure that you can take in the information and the skills that we're about to cover right now, and that requires you to be prepped and mentally ready for it, which is homework. We're not going to go flying. We're going to do it together. So next time you're going to have the homework, not schoolwork, not at the office work, homework done before you come in. Okay. Yes, that can be presented in a very respectful, kind way. I care about you. We're going to do this together. Next time, have it done before you show up. Okay. Then step number 3, to allow the mental transition into personal responsibility for their own training, you have to ask or get your student to, and I say ask the student to ask a question, get the student to ask you a question related to the material or related to the lesson that wasn't covered in the material. And be very frank, be very clear with your student. So at the end of each lesson, during the post-flight debrief, you must ask a question related to you being a pilot, an independent learner, that shows me that you are thinking beyond our lessons. And it can be like preferably related to this material, can be related to any material in our immediate future. But I need you to develop the habit of being curious about what you're learning and responsibility outside of our lesson. So ask me one question, and it's going to be weird. It's going to be forced. It's going to be awkward in the beginning. But what you're doing is you're training the student into the habit of being responsible for their own learning. And as I call it, thinking ahead of the airplane, thinking ahead of the lesson, thinking ahead of the material. You can think ahead of the airplane on the ground. And this is exactly how we're going to do it. So, okay, student step number 3, your homework is complete. Yes. Okay, you answered and you did the homework, and I enforced that. Yes, you did the homework. Yay, we can go flying now. So we do the lesson, we go flying, we come back. Okay, student. Now I'm going to train you into the habit of thinking ahead of the airplane, thinking ahead of your lesson, taking personal responsibility for the material that you cover. So I want you to ask me a question right now that if you visualize yourself in the airplane, if you visualize yourself in the circuit or whatever portion that you're doing, ask me a question that is related to this that we didn't cover already. And they're gonna like, I don't know what we didn't cover. I don't know what we don't know. But if you hold ground and you just sit through the discomfort of that for a second, or you reiterate the fact that I know it's weird, but what I'm trying to do is get you to think ahead of where we already are, because this habit is going to serve you really well in the rest of your license. And I care about your training. So I need you to think ahead. What's going on? What are you curious about that maybe you have heard, windsock, and have no idea about? Something that maybe a term that came across in ground school that you don't know about, or what does this mean? Or what would happen if the airplane did this? Okay, so just sit, take a second, think about it, and come up with a question, something that we haven't covered already that you're curious about, because I'm training you into a habit by doing this right now, and I care about you. Okay, rant over. So I hope that helps. As a summary, the steps are 1, 2, 3. We have assign homework that matters. please make sure that they do it. And if they don't do it, you have to set firm boundaries that it is not okay to go flying, because you actually care about not wasting their time and money, and you're going to hold them accountable to their homework. And number 3, at the end of the lesson, during the post-flight debrief, they must ask a question. Now, typically I have a giveaway after my rants, just to get you guys involved, to get you caring, to get you more information that I love giving away for free, because I am on a mission to change primary flight training all over the world, and increasing the level of knowledge and excellence of everybody on how to teach flight training, and not just the knowledge and steps of actual flight training. So if you have any personal questions that you're just dying to know about flight training, you have a difficult student, send me a private message. I will give you at least 15 minutes of my time to help you become a better flight instructor or a better flight student. And that is my wholehearted promise. Send me a private message if you want that. But other than that, go kick some ass today.